Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Dentalcafe. If you are new to my channel, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for the latest video. So today we are going to discuss about the major connectors in removal partial denture. It is a very important point for examination point of view. So begin with the video. What is major connectors? It is a part of removal partial denture which connects the component on one side of the arch to the component on the other side of the arch. As you can see in the figure, the dentition from one side is connected to the other side with the help of major connector. Moreover, it is a unit of removal partial denture to which all other parts are directly or indirectly attached. As you can see in the figure, it is a major part of the removal partial denture. All other parts of the removal partial denture, all other components are attached to the major connector, and it also connects one side of the arch to the other side. Classification of major connector. We have two types of major connector. First one is the maxillary major connectors and the mandibular major connectors. We'll discuss about both the connectors in detail in further video. Begin with the maxillary major connectors. We have a 6 type of maxillary major connectors. First one is the single palatal bar. Second one is the single palatal strap. As you can see the strap. Third one is the anterior posterior palatal bar or double bar. As you can see the double bar in the figure. Then we have a horseshoe or U-shaped connector. Fifth one is the antero-posterior palatal strap or closed horseshoe shape. And the last one is the complete palate. We'll discuss about each and every major connector in detail in the later video. Now, mandibular major connectors. We have 5 types of mandibular major connector. First one is the lingual bar. Second one is the lingual plate. Third one is the double lingual bar or Kennedy bar, as we have 2 bar. Then fourth one is the sublingual bar, and the fifth one is the labial bar, as a bar is present labially. In all other cases, bar is present lingually. What is ideal requirements of major connectors? Before planning to give in a cast partial denture, you should know the ideal requirements of major connector. It should be rigid, not flexible. If it is flexible, then how can it hold all other components? It should be rigid. It should provide vertical support and protect soft tissue. It should provide a means of indirect retention whenever required. Yeah, of course, it should be comfortable to the patient, and it should not allow any food accumulation. Very important. If it is not fit to the surface of the palate, it will allow the accumulation of food. So it is very important that it should not allow any food accumulation, otherwise it will causes halitosis, foul smell from the mouth, food lodgement, and caries in the remaining dentition. And it should be self cleansing. Yeah, this part is very important. Design consideration of major connector. We'll discuss each point in detail. Very important part. Intentional relief. What is intentional relief? I'll tell you. Border of the major connector should be parallel to the gingival margin. Very important. Metal framework should cross the gingival margin only at right angle. Border of the major connector should be rounded. Major connector should be symmetrical so that it will divide the occlusal forces equally. Anterior margin of the maxillary major connector should lie in the valley of rugas, not on the crest. The major connector should not extend over the bony prominence, otherwise it will cause the discomfort. A beading, round thick border should be given to the posterior margin of the maxillary major connector. Very important point to remember if you are giving a maxillary major connector, if you are giving a maxillary cast partial denture. Beading is must. Begin with the first point, that is intentional relief. there should be 6 mm intentional relief is mandatory for maxillary major connector to protect the gingival tissue. As you can see in the figure, we have a dentition and we have a maxillary major connector as shown in blue color. The distance between the dentition or a gingival tissue or gingival margin and the major connector is 6 mm. In the next figure, as you can see, we have a major connector and the distance between the gingival tissue or a dentition and a major connector is 6 mm. What is the reason to give a 6 mm intentional relief? It should be 6 mm away from the gingival margin, so to avoid any injury to the highly vascular marginal gingiva. If it is close to the gingival margin or it is over the gingival margin, it is constantly apply the pressure over it and may causes the injury to the vascular gingival margin. So in maxilla we have a 6 mm intentional relief. And what's in mandible? In mandible, the border of the major connector is placed 3 mm away from the marginal gingiva. As you can see in the figure, we have a dentition and we have a major connector. And the distance between the major connector and the free gingival margin is 3 mm. As in maxilla, we have 6 mm. As you can see in the next figure, we have a major connector and the distance between the major connector and the margin of the gingiva is 3 mm. And reason is same in both the cases, to protect the vascular marginal gingiva. Now second point of design consideration is border of major connector should be parallel to the gingival margins. Look at the figure, we have a dentition and we have a major connector. As you can see in the figure, with the help of arrow, the gingival margin and the connector margin should be parallel to each other. In the next figure, as you can see, we have a dentition and a major connector, and major connector is following the margin of the free gingival margin. And the next design consideration is metal framework should cross the gingival margin only at right angles. Look at the figure, we have a dentition and we have a major connector, and the angle between the free gingival margin and the major connector is 90 degrees. That is, framework cross the free gingival margin at right angle. So this is a right design. In next figure, you can see we have a dentition and a major connector, but the major connector is making an angle to the free gingival margin. So framework cross at an angle, not at right angle, at an angle. So this is a wrong design. It should cross the free gingival margin only at right angle at 90 degree. Now the next point of design consideration is border of major connector should be rounded. Very important point. As you can see in the figure, we have a dentition and we have a tongue, and the border of the major connector is rounded. This is a right design. If it is not rounded, then it is constantly hurt the tongue. As you can see in the second figure, the border of the major connector is not rounded. So what happens? It constantly hurt the tongue. If it is rounded, it will glide over the tongue. It will not hurt or irritate the tongue. Next point is major connector should be symmetrical. Look at the figure, we have a major connector, and if we divide the major connector from the midline, it should be symmetrical. As you can see in both the figure, the design of major connector is symmetrical. If it is not symmetrical, then what happened? If it is not symmetrical, then there is an uneven distribution of occlusal load. So it should be symmetrical for distribution of occlusal load. And anterior margin of maxillary major connector should always end on valley of ruga. Look at the figure, we have a tongue, we have a valley of ruga, and we have a major connector, and it should be end on valley of ruga. If it is end on valley of ruga, then this design is correct. And what happens if it is end on crest of ruga? The anterior margin of the maxillary major connector should never lie on crest of rugas. So look at the figure. We have a crest of rugas, and if major connector is lie on crest of rugas, then this design is wrong. It will constantly apply the pressure at the crest of rugas and it will cause the pain. The major connector should not extend over any bony prominences such as tori. Look at the figure. We have a small tori in the center of the maxilla. What is the design in such cases? So design of major connector in such cases, we have two options. Either we cover the palate or we give a relief over the tori area. So look at the figure. In the first figure, we cover the palate area or the tori also. So this is a wrong. If we cover the tori, then it will constantly apply the pressure over the tori. It will causes a discomfort to the patient. So what we'll do, we'll relieve that area. We'll relieve the area of tori. And yeah, we have one more point to be kept in mind, that if tori is small, then only will give relief. If it is a larger one, then surgical excision is done. It is mandatory. And the last point of design consideration is beading. A rounded thick border should be given to the posterior margin of maxillary major connector. Look at the figure. We'll make a groove of 0.5 to 1 mm at the posterior margin of major connector. So you can see in the figure, we'll beading at the posterior margin of major connector. In the next figure, you can see with the help of a spoon excavator, we'll create a 0.5 to 1 mm of groove on the master cast, which is called beading. Okay, why we'll create beading in the maxilla, not in the mandible? To provide or to obtain better adaptation and to prevent the entry of food particle under the major connector, we'll give grooving or a beading in the maxillary cast with the help of a spoon excavator. I hope I am able to clear this topic in a very simple and an easy way so that you can easily understand. So do like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest video. Thank you for watching.